Welcome back to Hannity. There is a major development in Hillary Clinton's ongoing server scandal. Now, as our own Catherine Herridge first reported, emails on Clinton's unsecure server were found to have contained information that was beyond top secret. Now, despite being under FBI investigation and mounting evidence against her, now Clinton has used nearly every excuse in the book to try and brush the scandal aside. Take a look.
When I got to work as Secretary of State, I opted for convenience to use my personal email account, which was allowed by the State Department, because I thought it would be easier to carry just one device for my work and for my personal emails instead of two. I think that it might have been smarter to have those two devices from the very beginning. I did not receive nor send anything that was classified.
You were the official in charge. Did you like the service?
What, like with a cloth or something? No. Well, no. By the way, you may have seen that I recently launched a Snapchat account. I love it. Those messages disappear all by themselves. My use of personal email was allowed by the State Department. It clearly wasn't the best choice.
Well, my favorite is like with a cloth. Back with more reaction. 2016 Republican presidential candidate Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, this seems to be any more serious. The Intelligence Community Inspector General Charles McCullough laid out findings after review by the intelligence agencies identifying several dozen additional classified emails, including special access programs, SAP, a level of classification beyond top secret. Mm-hmm. Now that would be multiple felonies that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Do you suspect she might not end up being the nominee, but might end up being indicted?
Listen, these are very, very serious charges coming from the Inspector General. The SAP files, which is the higher level of classification, the reason they get that higher level of classification is because you can reveal intelligence collection methods and sources. The reason it has that classification is you don't want our covert operatives at risk, potentially at risk of being compromised or even kidnapped or murdered by revealing the information, the intelligence that they have collected. And for her to have this on an unsecured server that I guess it was reported was in a bathroom somewhere, that is a very, very serious allegation. And I would note General Petraeus was criminally prosecuted, and right now the Obama Pentagon is trying to strip him of one of his stars for doing what appears on the face to be much, much less than Hillary Clinton did. It really raises the suspicion that the Obama White House is behaving as it always does, putting politics ahead of the law and ahead of defending this nation's interest in national security.
I want to go back to what came up in the debate, this New York values issue. It was an issue that came up that I took personally, and the result was I got many invitations to become citizens of other states or certainly move to those states. But Andrew Cuomo said this about conservatives. I want you to listen.
Who are they? Are they these extreme conservatives who are right to life, pro-assault weapon, anti-gay? Is that who they are? Because if that's who they are, and if they are the extreme conservatives, they have no place in the state of New York. Because that's not who New Yorkers are.
I'm pro-life. I am pro-Second Amendment. I'm pro-traditional marriage. I'm not anti-anything. Mm-hmm. That is a pretty severe thing for the governor of a state to say, basically saying I'm not wanted in this state. And they do take a lot of my tax money. I will point out to you, nearly 10% state, nearly 4% city tax. Your reaction?
Well, look, that comment reflects the arrogance of the big government liberals who have been running New York politics for a long time. That comment manifests exactly what New York values are. And you know, I would note that the phrase New York values, when I brought it up, it came originally from Donald Trump. From his own words, he did an interview with Tim Russert, long interview, where he explained his views, that he was very, very, very pro-choice, that he supported partial birth abortion, which is really an extreme view on the issue of life, that he was in favor of partial birth abortion, and he was open to gay marriage because he had been born and raised in New York. And his background, he said he has the views of New York, and the New York views and New York values are different, and he explicitly says they're different from Iowa values. Well, he's right in that. And it's interesting that Donald took such offense when I repeated his own words and said, well, he reflects New York values.
And you apologized to New Yorkers on my radio show.
I did indeed. I apologize to the millions of conservatives in New York who've been abandoned by liberal politicians. I apologize to all the men and women that want to work in New York but can't because Governor Cuomo has banned fracking, and so they don't get high-paying jobs that people just south in Pennsylvania get. I apologize to all of the African-American children who Mayor de Blasio tried to throw out of their charter schools, which were giving them a lifeline to the American dream. And I apologize in particular to the cops and to the firefighters and all the 9/11 heroes who had no choice but stand and turn their back on Mayor de Blasio because over and over again he sides with the criminals and looters rather than the brave men and women of blue.
Let me give you an opportunity. We're going to be in Iowa next week, so I assume we'll have you on the program at least one more time before the Iowa caucuses. But in fairness, I'll give Mr. Trump. I agree. This is right now looking like a two-man race. An opportunity to do so as well. But closing arguments, policy differences, foreign policy, the Iranian deal. What would a Ted Cruz, Senator Cruz, President Cruz White House look like versus, in your mind, a Donald Trump White House?
Well, Sean, every one of us has had the experience of supporting politicians who say good things on the campaign trail and then they don't do what they say. It's why people are so frustrated with Republican leadership in Congress, because we were promised if we had Republican majorities in Congress, they would do something. They wouldn't just cut deals with Harry Reid and the Democrats. So what I would suggest to voters, don't listen to what any of the candidates say on the campaign trail. Campaign's rhetoric is cheap. Ignore what I say, ignore what Donald says. Look to our records. Who has actually stood up and fought? If you say you're going to take on Washington, when have you stood up and led the fight? For example, every Republican says they oppose Obamacare. The question you ought to ask, in 2013, when we had an epic drag-down battle, where were you in that fight? I was standing with millions of Americans leading the fight against Obamacare. Mr. Trump was nowhere to be found. He was not part of that fight. He didn't show up for that fight. In 2013, when Harry Reid and Barack Obama and Chuck Schumer came after the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, millions of Americans rose up to defend our constitutional rights. Once again, I was proud to lead that fight. Once again, Mr. Trump was nowhere to be found. He had been advocating previously for restricting so-called assault weapons, and when it came a time to defend the Second Amendment, he wasn't there. And even on amnesty, you know, on the campaign trail, Donald likes to talk a lot about amnesty. Well, we had an epic drag-down battle in 2013 on amnesty, where President Obama and Chuck Schumer joined with establishment Republicans like Marco Rubio to push through a massive amnesty plan. And it passed the Senate. It was about to pass the House. You remember, Sean, Republican leadership in the House was going to join with the Democrats and pass it over the objections of Republicans. And I stood shoulder to shoulder with Jeff Sessions and Steve King and millions of Americans defending our sovereignty, standing against amnesty, fighting to secure the borders. On the other side was Marco Rubio, who's with Chuck Schumer and Barack Obama. And missing from the entire battle was Donald Trump. If he cared about this issue so much, where was he when the fight was on the verge of being lost? And if millions of us hadn't risen up, Barack Obama would have granted amnesty to 12 million people here illegally, and we would have lost this battle. And what I would suggest is the scriptures tell us, you shall know them by their fruits. Don't listen to the words of the candidates. Look at the walk and the action. That's how we determine, and I'll make one final point. The most important determination anyone is making in this election is who's prepared to be commander-in-chief, who has the experience, who has the knowledge, who has the clarity of vision, the strength of resolve, and the judgment to keep this country safe. If I am elected president, we will defeat radical Islamic terrorism. We will utterly destroy ISIS. And Iran will not get nuclear weapons. I will rip to shreds this Iranian nuclear deal. Donald Trump has pledged to keep the deal in place and try to negotiate. You don't negotiate with the Ayatollah Khamenei who chants death to America. You defeat him. And we need a leader who doesn't get rattled by the latest drop in polls, who doesn't wake up in the morning with a frenzy of tweets, but rather has the clarity of vision and strength to keep this country safe. That's what I'll do as President, John, and I think that's why conservatives are uniting behind us all across the country. It's why the establishment is headed to Donald.
All right, Senator, we'll be in Iowa most of next week, and we'll hopefully see you and all the other candidates there. Thank you so much. Only 12 days to go. Here we are.
Rattled by the latest drop in polls, who doesn't wake up in the morning with a frenzy of tweets, but rather has the clarity of vision and strength to keep this country safe, that's what I'll do as President, John. And I think that's why conservatives are uniting behind us all across the country. It's why the establishment is headed to Donald.
All right, Senator, we'll be in Iowa most of next week, and we'll hopefully see you and all the other candidates there. Thank you so much. Only 12 days to go. Here we are.